We will continue with our item 6.7, consideration of presentation of the 22-23 Weights and Measures Report, and this is our first. So thank you very much. Welcome. We have Ag Commissioner Vanderwall and Deputy Commissioner Upton. Thank you for being here with us.
Great. Thank you. Is the mic on?
It will be as you keep talking.
Okay, just making sure. So thank you. So today I'm actually here as Sealer of Weights and Measures, Catherine Vanderwall, and my deputy, Sam Upton. And I'd like to thank Sam for actually compiling the report that was presented in the agenda packet. So this is the first Weights and Measures report that we have done for Lake County. And actually our photo right there is from our archives. So it's kind of a historical Lake County Weights and Measures photo. So our current weight truck is newer than that, but not by much.
Not by much.
Oops, was it going to let me advance? Okay. No.
Yeah, if you go to next.
I can go next. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. So the presentation today and the report also coincides with National Weights and Measures Week, which is each year March 1st through 7th is recognized as this. And the theme for this year is staying relevant. So Weights and Measures Week commemorates John Adams' signing of the Federal Weights and Measures Law on March 2nd, 1799. So what is weights and measures and why is it important? Why is this something that we should care about? Because weights and measures impacts almost every single person every single day. So anytime you make a purchase, weights and measures is involved. Oh, there we go. Okay. So weights and measures provides consumer protection and equity in the marketplace. So the summary is based off our fiscal year 22-23. Because that's our reporting period that we report to the California Department of Food and Ag Division of Measurement Standards. So during that time frame, we had 231 unique business locations were inspected, 1,048 commercial devices inspected, and 19 consumer complaints were investigated. So these consumer complaints range from anything from sub-meter billing issues, could be like CRV issue, or somebody went to a store and they were overcharged, so they were charged the incorrect price. So some of the commercial devices registered in Lake County, so these are total. These are not inspected every single year. They are on an inspection frequency schedule. So we have 778 gas pumps, 176 counter and computing scales. So these are the smaller scales. So think about like when you go, to the deli and you're like, oh, I want a pound of that ham, that type of scale. Or, you're buying frozen yogurt and you put it on the scale because they're charging you by the weight. So those types of scales. 57 large capacity scales. So these would be like our vehicle scales and other large capacity scales. 60 propane meters. So these are like the stationary propane dispensers. You might see it like gas stations where you go and you fill up your 5-gallon propane container. And this also includes like the delivery trucks that deliver propane fuel to somebody's house. So 1,658 electric submeters and 1,653 vapor submeters. So those are like, in Lake County, typically those are propane submeters. So the electric and vapor submeters, those typically are found in like mobile home parks or apartment complexes where the utility comes into a master meter and then it's, divided out to the individual tenants or units. And then 51 cannabis scales. Just keeping up with my notes here. So just kind of overview of what we do. So the presentation's not all inclusive. So if anybody ever had any questions or wanted to know more details, I would really encourage people to contact our office. But some of our more day-to-day functions, and the weighing and measuring devices that we do, I'm going to talk about. So part of what we do is we determine if these devices are suitable for commercial use. So, a lot of people when they're getting started, they want to go buy a scale, which is fine, but we really try to educate people on, you need to buy what's called a type approved scale. So this is like a scale or any other device has been vetted through a process and issued a certificate saying that's suitable for commercial use. And then of course it's suitable for the use. You don't want to get like a ounce or gram scale if you're going to be weighing something like 100 plus pounds. So making sure it's appropriate. And then we test these devices to determine their accuracy. So this is just kind of an example, the range of scales, like I mentioned, anything from like the counter scale at the deli to a livestock scale to a truck scale. So anytime, people purchase something by weight, our office checks those scales. So petroleum inspections. So when we do these inspections, we're testing for accuracy. We have what are called provers. So staff actually pump out fuel and diesel to make sure that, that the device is working correctly. So when you go to the gas station, you're actually getting what you're paying for. We sample for quality standards. So oftentimes we will get complaints, whether it's gas or diesel. People will believe that there could be water in those products. So we will go and take samples and then send that to the state for testing. So we also check the advertising and labeling of petroleum products. So your motor oil, transmission fluid, all those different products. And then of course we respond to complaints. And then in that middle picture there is a skimmer. So those are the credit card skimmers, which are often put into the card readers at gas stations. So when our staff is out inspecting the gas stations, they're also looking for these devices as well. Okay, so meter inspections. So some of the more common meters that we inspect and test. So these are devices that are found on delivery trucks. As I mentioned earlier, trucks that deliver heating fuel to your home, to the little 5-gallon propane tanks. So we also test other meters, like wire or cordage meters. If you're buying something by length, there's special meters for that. And then recently we also began testing the water dispensers. So those are the little units you find, whether they're inside of a store or outside of a store. You bring your own 5-gallon container and fill it up. So we've started testing those for accuracy as well. So submeters, so as I mentioned earlier, so these are meters that are commonly found in mobile home parks and apartment complexes. Could be anything from electric, propane, to water meters. So we do not test non-submeters. So, things that like on your residence or if you're tied into a city water system, those water meters, we don't have jurisdiction to test those. So those are actually regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. So price verification, this program right now, we currently we respond to consumer complaints. So this is like going into a business and then doing a random selection of samples, and then you're taking it up to the register and making sure everything's ringing up as the posted price. So you're looking for any price errors or discrepancies. So this is something we're kind of exploring it's a big deal to make sure that people are getting what they're paying for and they're not being overcharged. So to have a program like this that's robust, we would need a county ordinance, additional staff, because it's very time consuming to do these inspections. So this is something that we are exploring for the future. But as of now, we're just responding to complaints. So somebody goes to a store and they're like, hey, I got overcharged. And then they bring us their receipt and then we do an investigation on that. So on the horizon, electric vehicle charging stations. So some of the challenges with these devices is determining who owns these meters. Oftentimes, a company comes in, sets up shop. We have no idea who owns the meter, who to contact, that type of thing. We are also working with the state. They have 5 testing standards that they loan out to counties. So they will actually come up, they train staff on how to use them, and then they'll loan them out to the county. And these the standards are really expensive to purchase. So being able to borrow them from the state is great. And another challenge with the electric vehicle meters is doing the testing and the payment process, because a lot of these require you to download an app on your phone and have a credit card on file. So it's not like a gas station where we can just go in and ask them to turn the pumps on, turn the pumps off. These are devices that are just usually out in the middle of a parking lot somewhere, and the business that they're in doesn't own them and has no control over them. So we are working with the auditor's office on different ways on, how we can do the payment part of this for the testing of these devices. And that's actually all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for this presentation. Supervisor Pyska?
I just want to thank you because, as I mentioned earlier, we talk about this a lot, especially during our governance meetings and budget times, but it's really nice to see and understand, especially for the public, how you operate and how we want to have transparency with the process and everything that you buy. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anything else? Supervisor Green?
Just, I guess you're not doing counter scales for cannabis, so that would be on the cultivation side, wet weight of scales.
No, you want to answer this, Sam?
Because most of the retail stuff is prepackaged, so are you?
Yeah, so we do test all the cannabis scales. Part of that track and trace program requires a weighmaster certificate and license, which they get through the state. And so in order to enter stuff into the track and trace, you need to have a legally defined weight, which is what you'd have the weighmaster certificate for. And for the weighmaster, you need a certified scale. So we do, because of the weighmaster, we need to also test those scales.
So most of those 51, whatever, were cultivators or manufacturers?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have some concerns about the future, because right now it doesn't seem like there's a standardized format of all of the EV stations at this moment. I think eventually we'll get to like our phones where it'll be a C rather than all kinds of different unique proprietary connections. But I think that will create a little bit of a difficulty, because you're going to have to buy different connections to measure each one individually. So that's a little bit of a concern right there. Right now, it's kind of wild, wild west for EVs, and eventually I think we will get that standardization, and it'll be a little difficult as you're forced to measure those gauges until we get to that point. But other than that, I learned a lot by going through your presentation and preparing for this meeting. I knew what you did, but I did not know to the depth of what it was. So appreciate that, and I'm sure that everyone else that's listening is also learning from this, so thank you.
Yeah,
What did you say?
yeah, learned a whole bunch too. But, the EV charger, that was very interesting how that moves forward. Do you know how much it is? You say very expensive, the tester. Do you have any idea on the cost for that? Because
Well, there's a couple issues with it. There's the fast chargers, the DC, and then the slower AC. And currently, there isn't even an approved standard to test the DC, the fast chargers. I'd say most of the chargers we have in this county are AC. And I think one of those units is around 30,000, maybe a little more than that. Right now, not a lot of counties are jumping in on it. So if we were to jump in, we could certainly get the state one, probably without too much trouble. And I do believe they have a lot of different styles of plugs with that standard. So we could handle probably everything we have in the county now with the current state standard.
okay. And I also see right at the beginning here, starting with the deficit on the budget, right? Unless I'm reading it wrong, weights and measures expenditures, 180,100, weights and measures revenue, 92,558. So I think during budget time, we want to make sure all of our departments have what they need. If we're expending more there, I hate to add more to the budget conversation, but that's It's a big thing right off the front there. And then communication, the state is rolling out a bunch of funds to get EV chargers brought. We've talked about this for infrastructure needs. Appreciate you bringing up that, how we're going to test these things as we move forward, to be a part of that is, even if we're going after something that, if it's a grant that we put in to have that tester for ag departments, we can do those things as we're helping build that infrastructure across the county.
Right, and then the expenditures, or the revenue, I'm sorry, in the report, a lot of that's generated from our device registration. So our county has an ordinance that allows us to collect registration fees on these devices, which are limited in code as far as the maximum amount that we can charge. But that was recently changed in legislation, so we will be bringing that ordinance back to update our fees and the fee schedule.
Okay. Because I think we can charge what it costs us, and right now we're not doing that, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a very dumb question, but I'm curious. When you're measuring these things, like, for example, you measure the 10 gallons of fuel, what do you do with that fuel? Do you just give it back because there's a more industrial process to put that into the wells, and propane and everything else as you test those things? What do you do with the product?
So yeah, we return it back to wherever it came from. So at gas stations, we'll pump it out and then pour it back into the inlet fill pipe. Okay. With trucks and stationaries, it'll go back in the truck or in the propane tank. That kind of is where the electric vehicle thing is different, because that's something we can't return. Like, once we're drawing power out of a charger, it's just dissipated. Basically the standard is like a heater unit. So we're testing it, but that electricity is going into something that just heats up and dissipates the energy. So that it just goes away, so we essentially have to pay for it. But everything that we currently test, it can be returned.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I'm going to open it up for public. Any comments from the public on this item? I see no hands up in Zoom and no one rushing to the microphone, so I'll bring it back, and I believe it's just a presentation, no action or direction needed. Thank you very much. Educational on my end.
Thank you.
Is this going to be a regular thing like the crop report? Just asking.